Hey everybody, come on in. Good to see you. Here we go. How's everybody doing? Hi Soraya, nice to see you. It's been a while. Noreen, lovely to see you. Yvette, Rick. Rick, it's been a while. Good to see you. Yay, some nice familiar faces there. That's brilliant. How is everybody doing? Are we still in the January, February blues, or are we coming through winter okay? I hope everybody's coming through. Hi, hi, hi. Right, so thanks very much for joining me. This is going to be a nice, easy, relaxed week, but I wanted just to make sure that everybody's fe Hi, Devin, great to see you. I just wanted to make sure that everybody is feeling good after we had the summit last month, and that we're continuing on and not letting things slip. We want to keep things going, keep moving forwards. Um, I am here, obviously, and you might see Kathy in one of the windows as well, my lovely assistant. So she will be keeping an eye on the chat box tonight if anything comes up. And I'm busy chatting and I miss it, then she'll be able to help out. And if you've got any questions, of course, direct them to her, not a problem. So just going to respect everybody's time today, and I will Pepper, I am envisioning between 30 and 60 minutes. I don't think the session will go on any longer than that. But if we've got questions and they keep us going, then I'll be here for as long as you need me to be.
Thank
Um,
you.
no problem. All right, let me see if I can manage to do the sharing, because I'm not always great at this. Always takes me a little minute to get things to the right space. Where am I? Okay, hopefully you are going to see something that says the novel writing roadmap, day one. I'm hoping you can see that. Someone give me a thumbs up if Kathy, can you see that? Excellent. Excellent. Right, so the novel writing roadmap. We're going to have 5 days together, and this is sort of an outline of what I'll be covering over the course of our week together. Overcoming writing fears. I don't know why I've put that in 2 words. That should be one, but overcoming writing fears. Tomorrow we'll look at structuring your novel. Day three, Wednesday, we're going to be looking at getting feedback. And I know that's sort of uncomfortable for a lot of people. It's not everybody's sort of favorite topic. We're going to look at editing your manuscript as well. And then finally, on day five, we're going to look at the paths to publication. Um, Quite often, actually, it's important to know that off the bat. It's quite important to know what route that you want to take, because that will determine a few different things and to which path that you take, not just to publish the book, but the level of perhaps, well, whether you're going to do query letters for a start, whether you're going to be looking at finding your own book cover designer, finding your own editors, that kind of thing. So it's a good idea to have a think about that ahead of time. But we'll get there. We'll get there. So why did I want to do this this week? Because we covered a lot in Be a Bestseller, didn't we? We covered an awful lot of stuff that week. And I am sure that over the course of our 12 days together, you were trying to take in a lot of information, um, taking lots of notes, really paying attention to the sessions that you were of particular interest, and then maybe delving into those that you were sort of more curious about. So I really wanted us to just have this opportunity to cement in the sort of big scopes, the high level picture of what it is to write this book and get it out into the world, so that you know where you're trying to get to, you know the roadmap that you're going to be taking. Because I want you to feel really, really confident about what's coming up between now and, let's say, either 6 months' time or the end of the year. So hopefully by then you'll either have finished the first draft, or if you're in the midst of a draft, you will have finished it. If you are wanting to query and you're almost there, but you're reticent, that you'll get the querying done. So I want you to feel good about taking all we've learned in January and moving forward with it through the rest of the year. Okay, so let's have a little look at overcoming some writing fears. Um, Writing a novel, particularly your first, second, and maybe even your third novels, and I know this from my own experience, but it's a really personal thing that we do, isn't it? It's not just plucking a story from thin air, but those first books that we write, they're usually based on some autobiographical element that we have. Either something has happened in our life that we want to figure out and understand in fiction form, or perhaps, something's happened to somebody close to us that we know, and it's really sparked this idea. And strong enough that this is the idea we're going to stick with. This is the idea that you're going to be writing for the next 1, 2, 3, maybe even 7 years. Who knows? However long it takes for you to get this book written and out into the world. So with that, though, with that sort of personal touch, with that sort of closeness to the book, it can feel very, very scary to either set the book out or hit publish and go for it and query that letter or query that book or even publish that book. So that's why we're going to start here, looking at ways to understanding what those fears are, and then some ways, some nice simple ways that you can maybe start to overcome them. But for those who are sort of newer to me, I just wanted to share a little bit about myself so that you know I am here in the same situation with you. I'm doing this with you. So I'm an author myself. I'm a certified book coach. So I work one-on-one with people on their manuscripts on their first book. I've written 7 manuscripts myself. I've self-published 4. I'm still working on that 5th. I'm a mum of 3 kids and I've got 3 cats, and I love to travel. That's a big part of what I love to do. So one of the reasons I'm sort of sharing that with you is not only you get to know me a little bit better, but also you can see I'm like you. I've got a lot to balance, I'm working, I'm a parent, I've got a life, I want to do all of these things and write my books as well. I want it all, and I think most of us want to kind of move towards having it all if we can. So there are my 4 novels, and in the middle is Launchpad, The Countdown to Writing Your Book, which is a non-fiction, obviously, as it says, helping you write your book. So if I can do it, guys, anybody can. I promise you. I promise you. And I'm certified through Author Accelerator. Right, so let's begin with these common fears. And as we go through them, have a little reflection. Think about what comes up for you, what emotions come up for you as we're talking about them, what memories come up for you as we are talking about them. And maybe, as we went through Be a Bestseller, there were some things that came to mind then as we were experiences that you've had that may have caused some of these writing fears. So why do we have the fears in the first place? Well, as we've sort of discussed a little bit, writing is hugely, hugely personal, isn't it? We might be writing about something traumatic that has happened in our own lives, and we're exploring it and we're putting it down on paper. So there's that side of it, which we've sort of mentioned already, that personal side of it. But equally, there is that fear of judgment, isn't there? There's that fear of external judgment, external rejection. And that fear, I mean, it really, really is human nature. It's inbuilt in us. It's part of our makeup, if you like, that we don't like to be seen as different. We don't like to be seen as doing something that goes against the grain. And often doing something creative, doing something that is out, that we consider out with the norm, that we fear that those that we know and love might reject us. We're fearful that they're going to make judgment on us. We want to stay with the pack. We like to stay with the herd. And I don't know if anybody else watches The Traitors. I love The Traitors, and I've been catching up on a few of the older series. And that is very much about group mentality. And when you watch people go through voting at the round table at the end of each day, and you can see a sort of microcosm of how we all are in real life. And one lady kind of did even say it. She was very sort of nervous about the fact that somebody voted against the grain. And she asked the question, why are you not voting with the group? Why are you not voting with the group? Because we do. We want to stay with the group. We want to know that we are part of a community, that we belong, because back in the day, as we were evolving, and as we were, cavemen and women, literally, if you were cast out of the group, out of the community, it could literally be the difference between life and death. And so this is ingrained within us, and we want to stay with the herd. We don't want to be seen as putting our head above the parapet and being seen different in some way. Now, for some of you here, that won't be an issue. This type of judgment or rejection won't be an issue. You've maybe grown up in an artistic family. It's not something that's new to you. But the others of you, you've perhaps grown up in a household where there weren't any books, there aren't any creatives. That's going to feel very different and make you feel very sort of out of the herd, out of the pack. But creativity thrives on the vulnerability that I mentioned about when you're writing something personal. When you're vulnerable, that's when you're at your most honest. And when we have something that's honest and down on paper, that's really where we get to connect with our reader. The reader might not do exactly what your character's doing, but if they understand the emotion behind it, then they will get on board with it. They'll connect with the character and they'll want to move forward in the book with them. And so creativity, good creativity, really needs that vulnerability, but it's uncomfortable, isn't it? I mean, if you think about conversations even with a partner or a spouse about something that's difficult for you, something that feels like you're opening up in a way you're not comfortable doing, even with a loved one, that feels dangerous. For anybody who's been through any kind of therapy and you're talking about something very personal that is with a professional even, again, it feels very exposing and it feels very dangerous. And we can feel that way when we're putting words down on paper and telling the story. But as it says there, writing equals risk plus courage. And when you're able to combine the risk and the courage, and get vulnerable in your creativity, you really will find the magic sweet spot there that will really help you write something wonderful and that connects with people. So the most common writing fears, we've talked about the feeling of rejection and not fitting in. So I'm just letting people in as they are arriving. But the biggest one that we see a lot, and which can encompass so many things, is the feeling of an imposter, that imposter syndrome. And believe it or not, everybody gets this feeling of being an imposter. It's not just new writers. It's not just writers who are a few books in, but actually even writers who are well established have these feelings as well. J.K. Rowling will talk about it. Stephen King will talk about it.
It's not working.
I remember that Joanna Penn, I don't know if many of you know Joanna Penn, she talks about, of course, feeling very real imposter syndrome as she was sort of starting in her writing career. And she went to a convention at which Clive Cussler was talking, who's, I don't even know if he's still alive, but this was a few years ago, but very, very famous writer, very well established. And she talks about how even he would say, I still feel like I'm an imposter here. I still feel like someone's going to find out I'm not meant to be here. So this is a big, big thing that we can all experience. So in that respect, you're in good company. So how does it show itself? Well, it can worry that, you feel like your writing isn't good enough and that, you don't have the talent or the skill to be able to write a book. You might feel that you don't have the vocabulary to write a good enough story. And that's a really, really common one, I think. We think I've been reading books all my life, so I should be able to write a book. Or perhaps you're very good with grammar and the technical side of it, but is that good enough to write a story? So you might be having worries about that. We all sort of judge ourselves in comparison to the books that are on the shelf and our favorite author. We want to be as good as our favorite author, not always realizing that in fact we maybe are, but we've got our own style and our own voice that comes out. And of course, we're always our harshest critic. So we can't always see that we are a good enough writer. And so we're comparing ourselves negatively to the other writers as well. And sometimes we think, oh, maybe it's just luck that I am where I am. So there's that fear of vulnerability, of sharing your authentic self. And the word authentic is thrown about an awful lot at the moment, but it really is. It's kind of about being yourself and being honest and truthful about what you've been through, the emotions that are on the page, and what you're willing to share about your kind of your views on the world and your thoughts on the world. Because even if we think we're just writing, let's say, a light-hearted rom-com or a sort of really fast-paced thriller, and we're thinking it's just for entertainment, even within that, we are sharing how we view the world. We're sharing in some way, shape, or form the experiences that we've had in the world, because it's those experiences that then shape the type of story that we're telling and the things that our characters will say. And of course, if you are somebody who is writing a story in which you really do want to say something about the world, you have things that you want to say, whether it's political, whether it's environmental, whether it's about racism or sexism or any of these things, and you've got a message that you want to share, then we can put too much pressure on ourselves to get this perfect. And so not doing justice to the cause that you want to write about, that and also can make you feel fearful about what it is that you're writing. And so kind of be thinking about this for yourself. Is this something that that you recognize in yourself, that you've felt before, this sort of holding you back from the writing that you want to do? Here we go, a little bit more about imposter syndrome, that feeling of being a fraud and being exposed. So even Clive Cussler has this. So many writers have this feeling that the next time they're going to be exposed for not really knowing what they're doing, and attributing it to luck. A lot of people do this. They think it's just good fortune or good luck that they've managed to write a good story or had some good reviews or some good feedback from their critique partners and writing groups. And I wonder if you maybe recognize that kind of reaction in other areas of your life. You know, if, say, for example, you get a new job or you get a promotion, there might be something in the back of your head going, oh, well, I only got it because I know the boss, or I only got it because I've been working here for 20 years, or I only got that promotion because nobody else went for it. It was just luck. It was just luck. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And so sometimes we can do that rather than actually acknowledging, hey, I've put in the hard work and I've got the skill, and that's why I got the promotion. And again, in our writing, you know, if you've put in the hours, you've put in the time and the efforts, then your skill is going to grow, and you know, you are responsible for that. You've done that. So it's not about luck, it's about the work that you've done. The other thing, another sort of symptom of imposter syndrome, is that the discounting of praise and positive feedback. Kind of just dismissing it. Oh, they're just saying that to be kind. In fact, they feel so sorry for me. That's why they're saying these nice things. And again, maybe you can sort of see how you behave like this in other areas of your life. I was with a friend the other day, and I complimented her on the blouse she was wearing, the shirt she was wearing. And she said, oh, this old thing, you know, this is ancient. I've had this for years. Or, oh, I got it in the sale. It was very cheap. And we feel this need to kind of discount the lovely choice that we've made in the clothing. So you maybe recognize that in yourself, and we certainly do this with our writing as well. Find a way of telling ourselves, oh, they're just being kind, they don't mean it, or dismissing something that actually you've worked really hard on. And then the fourth one there is what so many people are aware of, which is the setting impossibly high expectations. Perfectionism, that awful one where you are setting a standard for yourself that even your favorite author couldn't live up to. You know, it's just up here. It's got to be the most perfect thing that you judge to be perfect, that nobody can live up to, at least of all yourself, when, as we've already mentioned, we are our own worst critics. So these are some of the symptoms of imposter syndrome. Now, when that gets so intense, when that negative voice gets so intense that it's stopping you from writing, it's stopping you from doing the things that you want to do or taking that next step, that's when it becomes problematic. Because we all have these feelings, we all have these thoughts at various times. But if we let that inner critic, we let that voice get too strong, it does stop us from doing the things that we want to do. Not just in writing, there might be something else that you want to do. But again, imposter syndrome is kicking in and holding you back. So how do we get past it? How do we start that process of moving past imposter syndrome? Well, not easy to do, I do know, but sharing your feelings, talking about that, being vulnerable with those feelings is a great start. Don't bottle them up. That can be very, very hard because often we see that as a sign of weakness and we feel that we should be able to do these things by ourselves, and we're grown-ups, we're mature people, we should be able to deal with it. But by sharing, it's that old proverb, a problem shared is a problem halved. But by sharing those feelings and giving them an outlet, it can help just reduce the level, the intensity of the feelings. And what I found with imposter syndrome and that inner critic voice, that the more it feels heard, the more you kind of acknowledge it, the calmer it gets, the calmer it can feel, and it can start to quieten down that voice. So that's one option. The other one is to look objectively at your accomplishments. What have you achieved? If you're criticizing the fact that you feel you've not made any progress, that your writing's not gotten any better, this is where we get scientific about it, and we're looking for evidence. And I think it was Sarah, Rachel Grosvenor, if anybody attended her session about the muddy middle, and this was sort of the muddy middle of the emotions of writing a book. She says to her students, well, go and find me evidence that you can't do this or you can't do that, or that you've not made any progress. Go and find the evidence. What evidence do you have for this? And often, 9 times out of 10, there is no evidence. It's just up here. It's what we've sort of formulated in our own heads and the stories we've made up about our own capabilities. So if you're feeling that you've not achieved anything, that you're not making the progress that you want to make, then go and see what evidence you can find that proves that, because I don't think you will find any. If you went back and looked at your work a year ago, 2 years ago, you will see that you've made progress. You will see how much you've accomplished in that time. And you will notice that your style of writing is getting stronger, it's getting better, your voice is coming out more, and you will have made progress, I promise you. Another thing that you can do is start to understand that there is a difference between effort and putting in the work, because it does take work, the work of writing a book, and this idea that there's this innate talent. So undoubtedly, there are people out there in the world who have a stronger innate ability to tell story than others. And we all know who they are. They're your Charles Dickens, they're the Brontes, they're the Austens, they're the Shakespeares. As far as I know, none of them took writing classes. They just did the work. They had an instinct for it and they wrote, and that's what they did. But even those greats, they started somewhere, and that's the same for us. We all start somewhere and we build on that. And all of us are good at something. All of us have a natural sort of bent to our writing. It might be that you're great with dialogue. It might be that you write beautiful sentences. It might be that you understand pacing. And those are your really strong points. Those are the things that come innately are easier for you. And then there are going to be other parts of the writing process, of the craft, that you're going to have to spend more time on. And again, that's the same for everybody. And when you listen to interviews with top writers, you will hear them also talk about things that they've wanted to get better at, things that they've wanted to try out and progress with their own writing. So we all start as beginners, but we all have to put in that same level of effort to get to where we want to go. It's not about innate talent. Kind of sort of similar to that, focusing on the craft and keep on learning. And I don't need to say any more about that because you're here, you're doing exactly that. And then celebrate the small wins. This is a surprisingly powerful way of starting to calm that imposter syndrome voice down, to sort of soothe that inner critic. So a small win might be that you outline a scene or a chapter. You've got an idea of what's going to come up in that next scene or chapter. A small win might be there's a bit of dialogue you've been struggling with and you've spent a week on it and you've cracked it, you've nailed it. That is a win. And with each of these little wins, you don't have to have a chocolate bar, you don't need to have a glass of wine, you don't need to do anything fancy. But what I would ask you to do is just take a beat. Just take a beat and take a moment and say, good, I did that. That was bothering me. I was worried about that. And now I've done it. That feels good. And so you're sort of training your brain and your body to recognize that you're getting little wins along the way. And those feel good. I'm trying to remember who it was I was chatting to about this, but gives you those little dopamine hits that make you feel good about your writing, helping to calm that inner critic all the time, feel good about your writing, and make you more excited to come back to it next time as well. So celebrate the small wins. And then, of course, if you get big wins, if you finish the chapter, you finish the draft, you get your first review, whatever it is, then yes, have that chocolate bar or that glass of wine. Take yourself out for lunch or for dinner. Genuinely do something that really cements it in your brain that you have achieved a huge milestone in this career of yours, because no one else has done it for you. You've done it. So make sure that you acknowledge and celebrate it. So on top of that, or in addition to that, and accompanying that, we do want to start replacing the negative self-talk that we have. That's that inner critic again, and all the horrible things that it says to you about yourself. All those things that you would never, ever dream of saying to anybody that you knew in your life, anybody that you cared for, and yet you'll say it to yourself. Really notice them when they crop up. And we were trying to actively sort of counter them. We're trying to reprogram the way that we talk to ourselves and catch those negative things that we say. Sometimes it's as simple, as blunt as you're useless, you can't do this, you're rubbish, who do you think you are, you're a fraud. Maybe you even laugh at yourself, even attempting to do these things. So we're trying to sort of catch ourselves saying it, and then rephrase it, rewrite it in some way. And it might be as simple as just reaffirming for yourself, yes, I'm a writer. Yes, I'm a writer. That was one that I used a lot in the early days. Just saying I'm a writer felt very, very scary at the beginning, and it did feel incredibly fraudulent. But I'd say it just in my head starting off, and then later I'd sort of whisper it to myself. And then I did start doing sort of mirror work with it, and I would say it to myself in the mirror, which felt utterly foolish, but actually worked, was really, really powerful. And then eventually I was able to say to people out in the real world when they say, what do you do? And I'd say, I do still say, I'm a writer. I write fiction, but it took me time to get there to be able to say that. Another one there, my voice matters. If you're writing a story that you've got that strong message for, that you want to say something about the world, then yeah, your voice does matter. 100% it does. But that belief has to start with you, that your voice matters and what you're sharing with the world matters. I have an important story to share can be another really powerful affirmation. For everybody, it's slightly different. Different words will resonate with different people. I'm a writer might mean nothing to one person in the room here, but it might be a big, big affirmation and a big, scary affirmation for somebody else. So notice how your body, particularly your body, responds to the things that you say and the affirmations you use. And often the more outlandish it feels to say something like I am a writer, that's usually the one that you've got to go for, that will be the one that elicits the biggest change for you. And then just at the bottom here, I've put reframe fear as excitement and opportunity for growth. I don't know if you know, but the physical response that we have, the somatic response that we have to fear and excitement are the same. they come up as sort of butterflies in the tummy, or feeling a bit jittery, feeling a rush of blood, feeling adrenaline, feeling a flush in the cheeks, feeling shaky and nervous. All of these responses equate just as much to fear as they do to excitement. And so when you kind of notice yourself being fearful about something, take a moment and choose. You're able to choose, am I going to choose to be frightened by this and scared and not do the thing I want to do? Or are you going to choose to see this as excitement and something fun could come out of this? That same kind of nervous excitement that comes from going on a roller coaster or something like that. You want to do it, but you're terrified. But once you're strapped in, you've got to go with it. So maybe think of it like that, and you strap yourself into your seat at the desk and you get the writing done, and you'll have a great time once it gets going. You'll enjoy it. So affirmations are really, really good. Yeah, and reframing that fear as excitement and opportunity for growth. Because remember, we're all learning, we're all putting the effort in. So yeah, I just want to talk a little bit more about vulnerability, because I do think this is something that really holds a lot of people back. We're thinking about our fears, we're thinking about, we can name 10 great reasons to write a book, but one fear can hold us back from actually doing it. We can think about putting our story out to a beta reader, but there's lots of reasons to do that, but just one fear can hold us back. So the vulnerability means being honest in your storytelling and with yourself and your own emotions around any particular scene that's taking place. But that is how you get the connection with your reader, because it comes with specificity. So the more that you can be vulnerable in how you've responded to the world and the experiences you've had, the specificity of those moments is going to connect with your reader. And I mentioned this briefly a bit earlier. Your character might respond to a situation in your fiction, and that might not be the way that your reader would choose to respond to the situation your character's in. But they're going to understand the fear that there might be around that, the desperation that there might be around that, the excitement that might be around your character making the decisions that they're making. And so they'll go on the ride with your character. They'll be rooting for your character and want to find out what happens to them. And this is even more important if you're writing memoir. If some of you are writing a memoir, 100%, the more vulnerable, the more honest, the more specific you can be in the stories you choose to tell in your memoir, the more connection you're going to have with your reader, the more you're going to have the impact that you want to have with your memoir with that reader, because they'll be able to put themselves in your position. They're going to empathize with how everything is feeling, and they're going to root for you, and they're going to want to follow your story through to the end. I'm thinking about a memoir I read called Educated by Tara somebody Weston, I think it was, talking about her family and the upbringing that she had, which was very anti-education, anti-learning, especially for girls. And yet here she was, this incredibly intelligent young woman who eventually went to Harvard and was doing all the things. But she's having to be very specific and very honest about her upbringing and her relationship with her family members. And that will not have been easy. That will have been very, very hard. And there will have been a lot of soul searching going on in the writing of that book. But that was why it was so good. That's why it became a bestseller, because she was willing to go to those really dark places. Another book, the memoir that I've read, called Blackout by Sarah somebody whose name has gone out of my head. Again, a very, very emotional memoir, and she went to some really dark places with us in that book, but it connected. Oh my goodness, it connected. But because she was willing to be vulnerable and willing to be honest. So the more honest you can be in the writing, the more your reader is going to resonate with you. So yes, you're going to have that fear of judgment. Of course, we've mentioned that earlier. That is going to come up. That is just part of being a human being. But we've got to catch those fears. We've got to change the affirmations, change the things we're saying to ourselves, and remember that not everybody is going to love your work. Even Sarah Hapala, whose Blackout book I read, even Tara's book Educated that I loved. Not everybody is going to love those books, and that is okay. The sort of best example I can give you for that is Stephen King. You know, undoubtedly one of the most popular, enduring, well-respected, best-selling authors of his generation. I can't stand them. I just do not like them. I've tried so many times to read his books. I just don't gel with his style of writing. Does that mean he's a bad writer because I don't gel with it? Of course not. Of course not. Not everybody's going to love his work. Not everybody's going to love my work. Not everybody's going to love your work. That is part and parcel of putting something creative out into the world and letting people make up their own minds. And that's okay. Yeah, you're writing for your audience. You're not writing for everybody. You're writing for the people who will enjoy the books that you write, just as you enjoy the books written by people who are writing for you. And writing is bravery in action. I would say 100% that is. I still remember the first book I published, you know, my hand literally shaking as I was going to hit publish, thinking my whole world was going to change in that very moment. But of course it didn't. It didn't, not in that moment. But the fear is still there. The fear is very real, but I felt very brave too in that moment by hitting that button. Yay. Okay, so just a few final thoughts and some takeaways that I'd love for you to have today. So understanding, remembering, fear is part of the process. Embrace it. It's part of the process. You are in good company. Everybody feels it. We're looking to replace that negative self-talk with the affirmations, the self-kindness, the sort of taking in the little wins, and by acknowledging those little wins, we're being kind to ourselves and starting to be nice to ourselves. Imposter syndrome is common, you know, so many people have it, both the well-known and the brand new writer. So our aim is to focus on growth. Our aim is to just focus on enjoying the ride, going along with it, learning what we can, meeting lovely people along the way, and having fun with it. We're not looking for perfection because it will never be achieved. And writing is bravery, you know. So celebrate your bravery, acknowledge it and celebrate it. So those are the main sort of takeaways I'd love for you to have today and to put on a sticky and keep with you. But I do want us to do an exercise. I do want this to be a workshop, and I would encourage you to stay in the room and do this because you've set aside some time to be here today. And I certainly, for one, often find that being in the Zoom room, in the group, when I've put aside that time, I'm in the right frame of mind to really think about these things and to give it some proper thought. I'm not in the busyness of day-to-day life. So if you can stay with me for another 10 minutes, please do, because you will benefit from this. This will give you what you need. So we're going to set a timer for 10 minutes. So that'll take us up to 51 past the hour. And I want you to look at these 3 questions. What's your biggest writing fear? Now, if writing is fine for you right now, but publishing is scary or sharing your work is scary, think about what it is about that particular phase of the writing that is fearful for you. How is it holding you back? Think about the ways in which that is holding you back. And then finally, just one small thing that you could do that will feel scary. Of course it will, because you're going to be doing something new, but it's going to be taking you one step closer to where you want to be. So please do take the time to be with us. And some of that you will have done this exercise in the past, perhaps, but there is no harm in doing these exercises again. I often say that mastery comes from repetition. And I got that from Tony Robbins. So the more we do things, the better the result we get. So let's give it to 51 past the hour. And then if anybody wants to, if they've had an aha, do let, and you feel comfortable letting us know, pop it in the chat. Yeah, and I'll look in the chat and see if there's anything I need to have a look at. We've still got a couple of minutes, but if you've finished the sort of journal prompts and are have a look through the comments, the chats, and you'll see so many people have similar fears, all the same fears. Aren't we in good company to have all of those and know that we're not alone with that, that this is really, really common? Let's have a look at having a look at some of these. Keeping the manuscript organized is a huge challenge. It is. It's a big wieldy thing, isn't it? That is always a challenge, and that is something that if you will learn your process, you'll learn what works for you. And if you've been trying to find a process that works and haven't been able to do that, there's lots and lots of sort of, well, there's a course for everything now, isn't there? But there are resources out there that can help you find a way that will work for you. I think, in fact, Stacey Juba, if you've come across Stacey, she's got one about finding your process, and she's great. She's super, super organized. I ask her often for tips on how to be organized. Jane, now we've got a Jane and a Dave Osborne, so I don't know if it's two separate people or having to come in on two different profiles, but Jane's saying, I don't think I can prepare a manuscript and format them myself and my budget is limited. Jane, I promise you can. Believe it or not, formatting a manuscript is one of the easiest things with today's software. It's so super simple. So get yourself Atticus, which is just so user friendly and really reasonably priced. Atticus is super. And Dave's saying, writing something innovative that is truly different from anything else out there makes me overthink and not commit to a plot line. The cure is to just do it. The cure is to just do it. But also, Dave, I would encourage you to not be thinking about writing something completely innovative that is truly different from everything else that's out there. And the reason I suggest that to you is because if it's truly different to everything else that's out there, no agent is going to know how to sell that. No marketer is going to know how to sell that. They're not going to know where to put that on the bookshelf. So sometimes it's not always a good thing to be totally out there. You want to write something that people can recognize, and the storyline will be different. It will be its own thing, but it needs to be familiar enough that people go, oh yeah, I love stories like that. I'm buying that one. So just something to throw out there for you, but certainly just do it. Just write it, whatever it is, just write it. It's all about practice. Clyde is saying, my subject matter is dorky, holds me back from thinking about abandoning it. I don't know what the subject matter is, Clyde, but immediately when I saw that comment, I thought about all of the books that I have seen recently that are about cats in libraries, cats and their lives and how they dominate the lives of their owners. Who would have thought that would be a thing? People would have thought that was dorky at one stage. Think about, I'm thinking about cozy mystery novels, cozy crime, and how, they've got animals who are solving crimes. They've got, it's coffee that's the big thing, or it's baking that's the big thing. It's got a little dorky thing, a little quirky thing, but that's what makes it unique. So kind of similar to Dave, if we can recognize what type of book it might be, but it's got this dorky slant to it, that's what makes it unique. Absolutely go for it. That's the whole thing about being authentic, about being true, about being specific about what you like and you love and the ideas that come to you. That's exactly the sort of thing that would make something really, really special and appeal to a lot of people. Kind of almost the more dorky, the better, perhaps. But go for it, Clyde. Be sure to write it. Barbara, I don't think a book can be too personal. I don't know if you're writing memoir or you are writing fiction, but either way, the more personal you can be, 100% people will relate to it. 100%. As I was saying before, they might not do exactly what you would have done in terms of the choices that you've made or your character makes, but they'll understand the emotion. They'll see where you're coming from and they will go along with the ride. And they'll learn something as they go along that ride about how other people learn through, and go through life and why people respond the way they do. It's one of the reasons we come to fiction, is to learn about life and how other people live and the responses that they have. And so that holds you back. Yeah. And you judge yourself too harshly. Oh my goodness, yes. Pam's biggest fear is not getting facts right, but telling the story based on real life incorrectly. And you've answered your question. Yeah, fact checking is a part of editing, and that comes later. And also remember, even with memoir, that's how you remember it. It might not be how somebody else remembers something happening, but that's how you remember it, and that's the impact it had on you. And so that is your honesty, that's your authenticity, that's your vulnerability right there. And if that's how you honestly remember something happening, then that's truthful. And if your emotions are there and the feelings are genuine, that will still come across, and people will love it. Nancy, nice to see you here. Yeah, not being good enough makes it hard to put words that I really want to use on the page. I keep working on not letting the fear ruin my chances of being a writer. I mean, for anybody who's feeling this way, not being good enough, just put the words down. You don't need to show anybody them. But sometimes it can be really cathartic just to get them down on paper and get them out of your body, out of your system, and get the truth as you see it on paper. And then you get to go back and decide, is this good? Do I want to leave this in? Am I comfortable leaving this in? Or do I want to soften it a little bit? But go for it, Nancy. Go for it. And Devon, marketing. You are going to master this, Devon. Come on. Come on. The unknown of it all. It's I know that you're going to master this. I know that you're going to get it. I know how committed you are. I know how tenacious you are. But I understand that fear, that it feels so big and it feels like it's the whole world out there. How on earth can I do that? But I know that you'll figure that out. And the step is to plow through it anyway. Yeah, 100%, 100%. Editing, translating, marketing the book, expensive process. The cost around, somebody described it to me as, this is a business that we're starting. And say, for example, you wanted to open a brick and mortar shop, there would be startup costs associated with that. And I was encouraged to see hiring an editor, hiring a book designer, a cover designer, all of these things as my startup costs. These are the things I had to save for in order to be able to hire the right people and put out the book I wanted to put out. And so when I thought about it like that, it changed things for me and made me feel, okay, I can be professional about this. This is going to be a real thing that I'm doing, and I'm going to approach it in that way. So I don't know if that helps anybody, just to kind of reframe that and see, okay, this is my startup costs for my book writing business. I've got to save up for it, as you would have to save up for the stock or the rent on a building, whatever it might be if you had an actual shop. It can be expensive, but you don't need to do everything at once, and we can save for these things. Sue's saying her biggest fear is that her story won't be interesting enough or will be riddled with cliches, purple prose, and so disorganized no one will be able to follow it. And that's just the writing part. Don't get me started on the editing and publishing part. Such common fears. When we think about the finished book, the whole book, it's such a big project, isn't it? It can feel so unwieldy. But if we just take one thing at a time, break things down into smaller tasks, slowly but steadily, we will get there. 100%, you will get there. People will think your writing stories are bad and wonder why it isn't better because I spend so much time on it. And it holds you back. This is from Cameron. Holds you back from not want to ask too many questions about my stories after people have read them. Yeah, I feel that one too. I get very nervous and embarrassed when people tell me they've read my book. And one step to overcome, share your stories with more people. Now, you've said something marvelous there, Cameron, which is just share your stories. So for anybody who's worried about marketing and feeling, that fear about marketing, I think it was, who was it that said this to me? Women in Publishing lady, Alexa Bigwarf. And she said to me, you're just telling people about your book. You're just telling them that you've got a book and it's up to them if they want to read it. And so that really helped me as well. And just sharing my stories and just telling people I've got this. If they want to buy it, they will. If they don't want to, that's okay. That is fine. Yvette's saying, my biggest fear is not finishing the book or it being good enough. Some days I'm held back and depressed, feeling it won't get picked up by an agent. Negative people can sometimes be a problem. What I do to overcome these thoughts is to turn everyone off and everything, lock myself in a room with my writing pad and computer and remind myself I'm worthy of doing this 100%, 100%. Simona, well done. You finished the first draft of your book in 2023. Oh, and then it hit you like a ton of bricks. Oh my goodness. Since then, I've taken every online course I possibly could, read books. So yeah, so this is full on imposter syndrome sounding like. Yes, and you've hit the nail on the head there. The problem is I haven't put anything I've learned into action. I really hope this week is going to help cement some of this for you and help you kind of move forward with it. From the 1st of March, I will unsubscribe from everything and actually write. That is really good advice, and it is the advice I sometimes give people, which is just no more podcasts, no more webinars, no more free challenges. Just switch it all off and go and write. It is the best advice that sometimes you can be given. There are times in our career that we need to receive the information, we need to absorb it, we need a refresh, and then there are other times where we go, no, I'm at maximum capacity now, and we switch everything off and we just go and do the writing. Diana is saying it's so interesting to see other writers here who have the same challenges. Scrivener can organize your manuscript. Absolutely right. There is quite a learning curve on that one. If you haven't invested in either, Scrivener is pretty cheap actually, but Atticus is, I'd say, more intuitive and easier to use. Soraya saying, being vulnerable to my true authentic self, mentally, physically, and emotionally impacts how I see myself as a writer. Personally, has shifted thinking about how I'm so structured, forced to move away from the inner strength and courage to ultimately release holding back the baggage of Down syndrome. Yeah, but I love to hear you talk about inner strength there. I love hearing you talk about courage. And I hope you maybe caught, if you attended Be a Bestseller, then you maybe, oh, her name's gone out of my head now. Soraya, there was a great lady who she was talking about chronic illness, which I know you don't have, but I think some of what you've talked about there really resonated with what she was talking about. Sandra Postma, and she's lovely, so nice. And is really good about talking about inner strength and courage and doing what you can. Love it. Writing groups, you don't feel so alone. Noreen, you're so welcome. Oh, you listen to Stephanie. Yes, she's great, isn't she? Yeah, she's super. That was a podcast episode that is up. You can find it on YouTube. Yay. 2 people, both Osbornes. It's unusual to get both of the same surname. Lovely. Okay, I feel like, yeah, everybody is being really honest here and sharing what's going on. And how interesting, isn't it? Sometimes it's about the fear around actually writing the first draft. Sometimes it's doing the revision when the first draft's been written. For some, it's kind of getting the agent. For others, it's the marketing. We've all got our bugbears. We've all got our own thing, no matter what stage you're at. But it's lovely to see people kind of sharing ideas and feedback and comments and enthusiasm. Fabulous. Right, very quickly, a little bit just to finish off. If you're looking for some more personalized help, I do have a 12-month mentorship where we meet every month and help you write that book, get that first draft down, or finish your first draft and move on to your revisions. If you've finished your manuscript and you want someone just to have a look over it and look at what's working and give a top kind of structural edit on it, looking at the top level, I also offer evaluations as well if you need something a little bit more personal. But I will leave it there. We've gone on quite a bit longer than I thought we would, but I'm glad you've stuck with me. It's so nice to see so many faces today. And I hopefully will see you tomorrow for those who can make it. If not, don't worry, the replay will be available to you either on YouTube or on Facebook if you are on Facebook. You're so welcome, everybody. Lovely to see so many lovely faces, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Thanks, Kathy.